Oh, I just got off the phone with a client. And I'm not going to say, obviously I won't say who it is, but we're in the process of renegotiating my contract. And she asked me, she was frustrated. I'm being very careful, as you can tell.
Yep.
She's frustrated because she said, I thought we'd be further along in the process after 5 months. And I said, cool, but remember the last 5 months, every single week, when we talk for 45 minutes a week and we talk about one ingredient in your drink every single week? So every single week we talk about, and I'm not going to say the ingredient, we talk about the same ingredient every single week. And in the middle of September, on the second phone call that I ever had with this client, plain pasta is a bad idea. Oh,
Full disclosure, if this is a good story, I don't think you're live on Facebook.
I am. I'm live right now.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, proceed.
The middle of September, my second phone call with this group. I bring my best formulator to the table, and I get him on the phone. I go, Nick, here's what I'm up to. Here's my formula. He goes, Ben, we will crush this for you, and you will be to market before Christmas. Awesome. Let's get this thing to market before Christmas. Every week we talk about one ingredient in the drink. Is it real? Is it real? Is it real? That is my conversation every single time. So finally, fast forward to today, and she said, we're not happy with where we are after 5 months being in the process. I said, remember that conversation in September when I literally brought you the solution? And she said, yes. I said, we could have been selling hundreds of cases this month. I said, but you didn't listen to me. You didn't trust the people you put in place to bring you the solution. You didn't trust the process. I said, here's the process. Remember that 4-page email that I sent to you back in late August when we signed a contract? Yes. Go back and look at that. Flavor formulation, trusting the professional should have been done in month 2, not month 6. So I said, you need to take the weekend and think about where we could have been versus renegotiating my contract again. Because if it's going to be another 6 months of talking about one ingredient and not listening to me, I can't do it. I can't pull myself into a scenario where we keep talking about the same thing over and it's Groundhog Day. Every single Tuesday, it's Groundhog Day for me. And for me, that's where obviously I'm coming in hot today, but it's like, I guess my question is this is what I titled the stream is there so much going on that people just aren't listening? Are they being bombarded with so much? And in my client's case, it's just think about the 30,000 foot view for a minute. Think about flavor formulation is literally 15% of all the things we should be talking about. We should have a website. We should have a label. We should have an influencer program. We should have a direct to consumer. We should talk about strategic partners. We have to do a capital raise. There's 7 other things we should be talking about, but we get stuck on this one thing. Are people just completely overwhelmed right now with what's happening?
No, not at all. People are afraid to actually put themselves and their products and their ideas and their business out there. It's got nothing to do with being overwhelmed or overstimulated. It's basically just hidden insecurity of, if we can make talking about this one ingredient the big thing, then we don't have to do all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That's an excuse for me that, you know, allows me to not put in the hard, tedious work that it's going to take
Yep.
to work on the unsexy, monotonous 85%, which, to be honest, as you know, like, that's where success happens.
Yep.
You know, like talking about flavoring formulations and trying them and doing all this, like, that's fun. You know what I mean? Talking about, hey, how the hell are we going to do all this other stuff to get people to buy this? Isn't. So, you know, it's one of those things where by keeping a roadblock there, that gives people an opportunity to blame you for not getting through that. Because if you get through that and then you get to the other side and then things still don't work, then what do I do?
Right.
But if Ben hasn't figured out this one ingredient yet, then that's clearly the problem here, you know? And it's just one of those things. People, they disguise it as being a perfectionist or, you know, this one thing is going to be paramount to our success. You don't fucking know that. Like, stop. You have no idea what's paramount to your success right now. But telling yourself that allows you to not do the other stuff. So I don't think it's being overwhelmed or bombarded at all. I just think it's, like you said, not having a vision and a high level view of what it's actually going to take to grow this business in the way that you say you want to grow it.
And you know, the one thing I will blame myself for in this particular relationship is I probably should have had this conversation 3 months ago. You know, I let it fester. I did. So I that's on me. I put that on me big time, that I waited till the end of the contract to have the conversation. And that's something I'm trying to improve on. But, you know, did I just talk myself out of a re-up on a contract? Maybe. I might have. Or it's going to go, as you already know what I'm going to say, or it's going to go the other way and be like, yeah, we need to redo this, because I just relayed it back on the line with them this morning. I go, all these things that I just rattled off to you, those should be on our agenda every single week. You know, with the clients that you and I work with, it's not just the liquid. It has very little to do with the liquid. Now that you're starting to learn this business, it has very little to do with the liquid. It's all about how are you going to tell the story so that people create an emotional connection with the liquid, so that they can buy it, or they feel good about it because it fits in their lifestyle, right? Like, I'm like, so I did. I stubbed my toe on that. I own it. That's why I wanted to start with it today, just to get it off my chest. But it's like, but your point is perfect, and that's probably exactly what it is, because this is what I told her. I said, you have 9 toes curling over the diving board. You have 9 toes.
Yeah.
It's time. Like, you're either gonna, this is what I said. I said, take it all the way to the extreme. You do this, and in 27 months, you go to 0. You failed. You have a 0 business. If that happens, are you okay with that? And she goes, yeah, I am. I said, okay, so go the other way. You walk back off the diving board, and you never do this, and you've invested X amount of dollars in this. Are you, in 27 months, are you going to regret? Is the regret going to be more in 27 months of you not doing this and jumping into the water? Or is going to 0 going to mean more to you emotionally than not doing this? She goes, I want to do this, and I've always wanted to do this. I go, then there's your answer. There's your answer. Yep. This game is hard. You know, I just talked to one of my flavor formulas. He goes, there's a reason it's called entrepreneurship. You have to ship things. That is what this game is. It's not easy, but you have to make these hard decisions and listen to the people that you put in place, and listen to the people that you rely on to get to where you want to go.
Well, 1,000%. And I think that, because as you know, we had some growing pains with a very similar type of issue earlier in 2020. And I think one of the big things with it, just knowing how you and I approach things very similarly. And one of the things that comes sometimes with being overly positive and can do and rah, is that a lot of times people can mistake that for like, oh, this is easy peasy, right? And it's one of the things that I gotta stop saying like, oh yeah, that's easy, no problem, because it's easy for us to do it. Oh, like you need a quick branded one sheeter on the entire value proposition of your brand. Yeah, no problem. It's no problem for us because we've in this case literally been building this brand for 3 months, and we have everything, and we have a decade of experience that makes it easy, and a decade of experience of overcoming these hurdles where we know that we can do it. So I think that's a big part too, is that a lot of the really heavy, really difficult parts of this, I know you've done it so many times, so it's like, well, it's going to be hard, but yeah, we got it. When people on the other side of the conversation are like, oh, okay, it's easy then, you know? So I think that's a big part of it. And then the other thing is like, that's also a big reason that we have essentially a kindergarten level way of documenting our process. It's a color-coded timeline of exactly what we're going to do, when we're going to do it, and why we're going to do it. And we literally make people commit to that from day one, so that, because we would go run into the same problem all the time, where you'd sit down and you'd have your conversations up front, like, hey man, like this is like a 6 to 9 month process before we really start seeing an impact on sales and on the bottom line. No, yeah, I get it. And then on week 5,
In month
not,
2,
not month 5, week 5, it's like, hey man, we got to do something different. Like this isn't working. So that's literally why we map out 12 months at a time. And like, hey, like this is gonna, like, because I got empathy for it too. If you're a business owner, like you need to make money. And ultimately people hire you and they hire me to make money, but it happens in the long term. So I understand that, but like just kind of getting back to it. And I've lost people up front that if I just said, okay, we'll try, they would have signed on the spot.
Yeah.
But I flat out said, if you sign on January 22nd, like it's April 22nd before we even start looking at sales, like straight up, like that's just where we're at. And it's why I use that working out and getting in shape all the time as the analogy. You know, like you would never hire a personal trainer and then 3 weeks in say, hey, I don't have a 6-pack yet. We gotta change this. And when you put it in that mold, everybody that hears that, it's like, well, yeah, duh, it takes longer than that. And I'm like, no fucking shit. Mm-hmm. You know? And that's where just laying out month by month, hey, this is, and like one of the other key things that we did is we have action items from us and from the client. Mm-hmm. Hey, like you want to start a YouTube series? Great. Awesome. We can build out your YouTube channel, do some quick editing and run a campaign. But in order to do that, you need to send us a video for this series every Monday in bold letters. Yep. And then from there, if they do or they don't, up to them. That's fine. But what it does is it completely eliminates any possibility that 6 months in, they're going to be like, hey, we're paying you to do this YouTube stuff. And like, you know, it's just all expectation setting.
Yep.
And it's tough because it feels monotonous sometimes and you almost insult people's intelligence up front because they're like, why are you sending me a color coded document that literally like, it's like that's what I feel like sometimes. I'm like, and like you've been on enough calls with me when you've heard me go through it. I'm like, hey, I know that this is a little bit over communicative, but I literally don't want there to be any question what we're doing, when we're doing it, why we're doing it. Yeah. They're like, no, I get it.
Sorry. Yeah, I back to your fear of failure. I think that's a huge part of it now that we're discussing it. I think that's exactly what's happening is, because this entrepreneur runs in some pretty high circles. And if the business does fail, there might be somebody at the cocktail party that says, "Oh, that's the woman that thought she could, do a beverage brand, that kind of thing." So that could be it. You might have hit the nail on the head. But in terms of fear of failure, I think that's like for me, if I just drew the line in the sand with this brand, which I think I just did, and I'm going to hear from them one way or the other on Monday, like if they come back to me and say, we no longer want to work together, I go, okay, Mazel tov. Like if you never need me, here's, you have my number. And would I deem that a failure? Maybe, but I'm not afraid of it. It doesn't cripple me in the least. I'm not gonna lose any sleep over it. Will I feel bad? Maybe for a little bit, but it's the same thing that you and I talk about all the time. Is you forecast your business, at least for you and I in this business. You forecast your business, and if you do see a little lull, that it's time to spin up the market. It's time to spin up the networking machine. It's time to spin up the biz dev machine. And every time I've been doing this for three and a half years now. Anytime I started to see a little bit of a lull, like kind of that end of school year, everybody checks out for a few weeks. End of August, everybody checks out for a few weeks. End of the year, everybody checks out for a few weeks. And I saw this kind of coming, and that's when I spun up the biz dev machine for myself at the end of December. And then what you and I have talked about. I'm not ready to talk publicly about it. Some of the biggest opportunities I've ever had in my life are on my doorstep. And it took just a couple of weeks. But if those fall through and they become a failure, I'm not going to allow that to cripple me. I'm not. Just because we're built for taking the L. You and I are built for taking the L. And I think that is the big hurdle. And I think that's what people are ultimately afraid of, is what are people going to say behind their back? And that's a whole nother conversation. But what are people going to say behind my back if I do go to zero? That's a tough hurdle to get over. I understand that.
Well, and I think it's the difference between, you just said it, taking a loss versus a failure. Right. A failure, it's so final. It's so there's so much gravity to it. Right? But like a loss, what's a loss anymore? You know what I mean? Like you lose a client who's, a pain in the ass and didn't get it anyway. That's just going to devolve into headaches and stress that's going to bleed into other parts of your life, whether it's other clients or family or whatever. I don't think that's a loss at all.
Yep.
And that's kind of the cool thing. We had one in December where technically we lost a client that was on contract through April. I didn't shed one tear from it. If I showed you the email that they sent, it was literally a carbon copy of, they sent me a list of 14 things that we quote unquote weren't doing, that we had receipts on everything. And so I sent them back 14 screenshots and references to past emails where we discussed it 6 times. And then I'm just part of you's well, if they're not getting this, they're not going to get anything. Not that they wanted it to fail, but it's very obvious. We're not here to help you market your stuff. We're here to be a scapegoat for all the work you haven't done for the last 12 months. And I'm just not going to do that, and that's kind of the beautiful part specifically about what we do. We got receipts and numbers on everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It's you're not running any Instagram ads. Actually, we ran 17 of them in 10 days. We're contracted for 12 for the whole month. Well, you're not doing any of this. Actually, we did that every morning here. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of on repeat there. And then even down to the sales numbers with it's yeah, all the stuff you did didn't generate any sales. And I'm this campaign reached 410,000 people and had over 1 million impressions. I think that there's a far better chance that maybe you made a few mistakes in setting up your Google Analytics than a campaign of almost 500,000 people not buying anything. Mm-hmm. By the way, here's a screenshot for that too.
It's hard to look inward, isn't it? It's hard to look inward.
It's always easier to blame somebody else.
Yeah.
Whether it's their fault or not, and I think that for me, it goes back to one of the episodes we talked about a couple months ago. It's you're either in or you're in the way. You're either a winning player or you're a losing player. If you're a winning player, great, you're in. I want you on my team. If you're a losing player, I don't care if you're here or not. If that's a partner, if that's a client, if that's whoever. Because it's just we just don't have fucking time for that. we can go get more clients. We can go make more money. Like, I can't make more time for the hours that I waste on like bullshit that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. You know, so, you know, obviously it always stings when you lose a client and you lose revenue that you had booked. Nobody likes that. Like I always hate that part of it, but you just so quickly pivot to like Jay-Z, like on to the next one. All right. You know, and it's like, you got to take a lesson with it every time. Like, it's why our process is what it is today. It's not like I woke up one morning and just like, hey, you know what we got to do? Map all this out. No, everything gets added to it from some version of that happening.
Yep.
Or, you know, I didn't do a good enough job setting expectations, or I didn't do enough job documenting our plan or mapping it out or reinforcing it even over the life of a contract. So I think as long as you take something from each one of those and you put it into your system to hopefully mitigate that in the future, like over the long run, you're going to be in a really good spot. Sometimes shit's still going to happen. You're just going to have either irrational people or a global pandemic or, you know, you name it. But like long term, it balances out.
It does. And it's just, it's the ebb and flow. You know, there's always going to be like that one. You know, I'm very very happy and very thankful that I'm carrying, you know, 15 clients right now, which for me is a lot. You know, so if one is kind of goes sideways for whatever reason, like I said, call it out, address the situation, and move on. I mean, that's really what it boils down to for me is, you know, can we salvage the situation? Yeah, I think we can. I think, again, I should have had this discussion that I had this morning, you know, months earlier, but it is what it is. Everybody had families and holidays got gummed up and, you know, a lot of that stuff. So we should have had it, but I'm fine. I'm totally fine with it. I feel great. I feel great that we had the conversation. I think they know exactly, well, I don't think they do. They know exactly where I stand. And I reset the conversation to say, if you want to re-up me, great. That's, you know, love it. Would love it. I enjoy working with this team. I don't cringe when they're, you know, this is what I tell people when I interview people, whether I want to bring on a client or not. I have to check the good guy clause. Nobody gets into the circle until they check the good guy clause. And if I cringe when I see your name come up on a text, like, I'm out. I'm checked out. You know, it's not because it's hard work. It's just unnecessary wasting of time. You know, That's why we end the majority of these episodes saying, thank you for spending your most valuable asset with us, which is your time. You know, the fact that 6, 7, however many people are watching live right now, thank you. You know, like you chose for 30 seconds to come in and watch us two idiots talk about stuff. You know, like, thank you. That's amazing. But, you know, if they want to re-up me for another 6 months to get this thing over the finish line, it has to be done on different terms. It has to be done on listening to the professionals that you do put into place. And if they're okay with that, if they sign on the bottom line again on Monday, great. Let's go back to our weekly calls, but they're going to feel different. You know, it's going to be me driving the bus as opposed to and navigating it to say, here are your options. You know, here's where you can get off the highway. It depends on where you want that destination to go and how much money you want to spend on how fast we can get there. But rather than just speculating. And I think that's the word. I think I left too much up to speculation. And like you said, internalize it, get better, and move on to other relationships and make those better too. That's all you got to do.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so easy when you say it like that. You know?
I like to, you know me, I like to oversimplify things.
I mean, that's it though. I think a lot of times, you know, specifically outside of the entrepreneurship world, you know, overcomplicating things is just a way of life.
Yeah.
It's job security. You know, if I can take this 30-minute conversation and stretch it out over 3 meetings over 2 weeks, then that's going to be an excuse why I didn't update this or didn't get this done. Well, we've been working on this project with Adam and Ben. Like, yeah, that should have been done months ago. But like most people, they're not incentivized to get stuff done. And a lot of ways, they're kind of incentivized to not get stuff done. And the more they can stretch it out, the more they can put it off, and the more that they can create excuses for not having to work on the substantive part of our stuff. Whereas, you know, people in your situation and in mine, it's the opposite. Like, I'm not wasting 12 minutes on this call, but it should be 5. You know, like, do we need a meeting on that? Really? No, we don't. You know, so like that's like the other thing that I think is always like important to keep in mind. Like, I'm always cognizant of it, and like that's another thing that we run into there, where like you got to have some uncomfortable conversations. Where it's like, bro, this is an 8-minute task. You know, why is it taking 6 weeks for you to send an email? It's like, well, we're crafting. I'm like, no, it's an email. It's not a thesis. It's not a. There's nothing to craft. You know what I mean? Just copy, like Command C, Command V that text, and then click send. That's it. Tell me what I'm missing here. And it gets very awkward and very uncomfortable sometimes, but sometimes you just need it. You know, like you can't tell people how to run their lives, but like, look at, like, if I'm a part of this machine and I am in any way going to be held responsible for the outcome or lack thereof of this machine, and I see behavior like that, I'm calling it out 10 times out of 10. You know, and I hate being that guy. I hate putting people on blast, but I also hate losing clients as a result of somebody else's laziness more. You know, so it's just one of those things where you just need this level of blunt honesty, like not like being an asshole about it, but just having like an honest conversation and like holding people accountable. And it's like, if there's a bigger issue we got to talk about, fine, great, let's talk about it. Like, what's going on? What are we feeling? But if we're literally saying, hey, we need to have a meeting to talk about what we're going to put in this email, and then I'll work on it later and then send everybody revisions back for approval, and then wait, let's have a focus group before we send back the revisions on that email that we were going to send. What are we doing?
What are we doing? And there's very few things that get my blood boiling. But when she said, she goes, we're not as far along as we thought we would be. And I'm go, because we've been wasting time. We've been wasting time. Every week we get together, we've been wasting time. And I get it. There's outside forces. There's outside forces to everything. You know, one of the things, you know, it's funny, when I started my business, my consulting business 3 years ago, I used to have to lock myself in the basement because I couldn't focus. I couldn't have anything else, whether it be the dogs or the kids or Siobhan or somebody making dinner or whatever. Like, I literally had to go sit in a corner of a room because I had a hard time blocking it out. Now I'm like, screw it. I'm sitting here cutting up peppers and I'm talking to clients. I'm like, hey, I'm cutting up peppers. I got to get my kid to the ski hill at 6 o'clock. Hope you don't mind. They're like, yeah, whatever. They got kids running around in the Zoom. They got, you know, kids with their fingers up their nose running around, you know, like that's what this world has brought us to. And I think it's the ability to multitask, but at the same time, it's the ability to think about more than one thing at a time. You know, and I think that's where this particular project, you know, had such a hard time, was that it was very, you know, there was no, one of my favorite words, there were no parallel paths being driven on. None. It was draw up one task, focus the Death Star on one task. Once that planet is destroyed, take 10 minutes to turn the Death Star to the second planet, you know, and then knock that one out. It's like, no, you can eat and chew gum at the same time. You can do all of those things. We can talk about putting up a marketing page. We can put up a splash page on the website. We can take some pictures from Instagram. We can text some investors. We can do all of those things. You just need to be able to pull it all together and have some structure with it. So, like I said, that's going to be the structure moving forward if they choose to continue to work with me. But I go, you need to be able to do more than one thing at a time. And the clients that you and I, you know, work with together, that's why they're doing so well, is because they're able to walk and chew gum at the same time. It's having an itinerary of 12 things, but getting through all 12 things on the same phone call, you know? We have some that are better than others that do it, that you and I work with.
Yeah.
But it is those people that can work quickly, like you said, not waste time, not jibber jabber about the stuff that doesn't matter, but be able to accomplish the things that we set on that phone call. But know, to your point, know that it's only going to take 30 minutes. You and I, one particular client, our favorite, one of our favorite clients, we rip through those phone calls. We rip. And I look down and it's like 22 minutes time elapsed on the phone, and it's done. It's over. Yep. And we just move on. And that project is ripping.
And it's productive.
It's productive.
Yeah. Well, and I think to your point, and something that's not talked about enough, and it's kind of like where all these things meet, it's like trusting and empowering your team. Because, the whole, like, micromanaging is just the ugly cousin of being insecure to move forward.
Yep.
One of the things that allows you to go fast is when you have those meetings, and then you just let your people go do the things that you trust them to do. Like you're talking about it, like with the client that we've been talking about today, and how it seems like there is zero trust and zero empowerment to go do what I hired you to do. Whereas you look at that shared client that we have that you're talking about, there's nothing but empowerment there. It's basically, hey, like, what do we want to do? Okay, great. I think we should do it this way. Well, okay, that makes sense. Great. Do it.
Okay. Go do it.
And then, like, literally, like, we have another one where it also just the definition of that, where, like, we'll be on a call. I'm like, hey man, I kind of want to do this, this, and this with the website. Great. Anything that sells more blank. How many times have we heard that on a call? Dozens. Oh, you want to rebuild? Yeah, fine. If it sells more stuff, awesome. Hey, what do you think about taking this with the ambassador program and actually doing it this way? Great. If it sells, you know what I mean? But I think that's just such a big part of it. And I get it. Letting go is always hard. It's one of the biggest things that when you scale, but like this place is a great example where Dave's clients are Dave's clients. I talk to him, and it's like, obviously I have relationships with them because they were all mine usually at some point. But for the most part, out of like a, 45-minute guidance conversation on Monday, I got nothing to do with anything. He does the content, he does the captions, he does the ads, he does everything. He talks to them, sees how things are going, stuff like so. Like, it's just one of those things where, like, you just have to do that if you want to go anywhere. And people just don't realize that.
It's this goes back to one of our favorite things to talk about. It's how much do you want to gum up the works and twiddle your thumbs? How much do you want to twiddle your thumbs? What are the goals? This is what I always say. What's the North Star? Every single first conversation I have with every client is, where do you want this business to be in 24 months? Where do you want it to be? And if somebody has, I got to drop my word. If somebody has the audacity to tell me that they want to sell their business for $75 million in 3 years, great. That's a great goal to have. Let's make sure every decision that we make between now and in 36 months, when you sell your business for $75 million, is pointed towards that goal. Every single one. If it's not, you're twiddling your thumbs. If it's not, you're wasting your time. If it's not, you're wasting your money. If it's not, you're wasting my time. And guess what? Ain't nobody got time for that. So that's fine. But if you don't move fast, two things are going to happen. You're going to just what I just said, you're going to waste all those things, and you're going to get lapped by the competition. Somebody else is doing this right now. Somebody else is making this product right now that I have no idea who it is. And it's going to be on the shelf before we are. It is. Because in August, when they hired their person to open up their network and made it happen, they didn't dilly-dally and they didn't twiddle their thumbs. They said, do it. Go do your job. And it's unfortunate. It really is. It's just unfortunate.
It's sometimes you got to let people touch that stove though. You know, you can sit here and tell them all day that all those things are going to happen, but it's like, yeah, he has to say that. Nah, that's his job. You know, but like, okay. And like dude, like I hate it, but I got 2 in my back pocket of people that gave up in June.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to innovate. They didn't want to work. They didn't want to do anything new. They let themselves believe that pandemic. Oh, it's Cuomo. Oh, it's this. Nothing we could possibly do to get through this. And I just had a conversation with one person yesterday, and you know, was genuinely concerned for me, thinking that we were going to go out of business. Was genuinely thought times are really tough, and I wanted to make sure I was okay. And I'm like, I appreciate the concern, but we're great. He's like, really? I'm like, yeah. He's like, if you lost any clients, I'm like, dude, we're adding them. You know? And he's like, well, what about your restaurants? I'm like, they're all surviving, bordering on thriving, because they changed everything. What? He's like, well, dining room service has to be down. I'm like, yeah, but takeout's up 60%. Like, spoiler alert, dining room dollars and takeout dollars don't hit your bank account any differently at the end of the day. Actually, let me take that back. Yes, they do, because you have significantly less overhead on takeout dollars.
I was going to say, yes, they do.
So like, you know, it's just one of those things. And then there's just this look on his face, and it simultaneously is just heartbreaking, but also kind of like, he's like, fuck, I wasn't just Adam being his normal, overly optimistic, positive self in June. Like, you really are more in control of your shit than you want to let yourself believe. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's just one of those things. And that's where, like, I think we've talked about it a lot. You know, all of this pandemic stuff has, you know, it's done a lot of bad, but I think it's highlighted some things that people maybe weren't aware of in terms of just how open the world is to creativity and innovation and just going and doing. Like, yeah, shit's going to break along the way. Yeah, you're not going to have every answer. Like, yeah, you're going to try some shit and it's going to fail. But like, it's only a failure, like, if you don't get better from it. Like, if you just sat there and you didn't change anything and you just let this keep happening over and over and over and over and over again, that'd be one thing. But it happens once, and there's 1 or 2 small tweaks you got to make, and then it doesn't happen again. You know, if we just sat here and didn't do any planning, no road mapping, none of this stuff, and just kept doing what we were doing, and we kept losing clients for the same reason, like, fuck me then. I deserve that, you know. But everything you watch and you tweet, and it's like we'll bounce ideas like, hey, if we did this, I'm like, yep. And then boom. And then now even like we started doing content days, first Friday of every month, no office work whatsoever. First thing in the morning till the end of the day, all content. And we're like 4 months into that. And every month it gets smoother and smoother and smoother and smoother. In terms of how we plan for it, is how we communicate with our clients, where now they're starting to know first Friday of the month is content day. So if they have ideas or stuff like that, they'll get it ready for that Friday. And it's just like you see it, and that's so easy. It's not a revolutionary idea. That's literally arbitrarily picking one day and then saying, hey, we're going to do this part of our job on this day every month. Mm-hmm. And it's just unkinked so many hoses, because now there's no random Tuesday that I got to go take pictures here for an hour. We got them. Yep. You know, so it's just one of those things. Like, how you choose to approach it is going to have so much impact on that, which is why you get so amped to people that do it right. And then people like this, all right, you're 100% right. Like, 1 of 2 things is going to happen. It's either going to be the best conversation you ever had with them, and it's going to change the dynamic, and it will go to market, 4 months later than it should have, but it'll still get there. Or they're going to tell you, hey, we're not the people for you. In which case, fine. But it's just, sometimes it's just that simple.
they need a good marketing company. So I said, I know a guy. So you might be on a call next week with us.
I don't know how I feel about that based on the last 45 minutes, but
no, and that's why I do get amped up, because I only get involved in projects that I know can win. If it's a 0 out of the box, I pass on it. I don't care what the contract looks like. I go, this is, and I've told people this, and I didn't used to do it this way, but now I do. If somebody brings me just a trash idea in a trash project, I go, hard pass, bro. I'm like, I'm out. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute. I thought you were the guy that did it. I go, I am that guy. But you need to have a road, your word. You need to have the roadmap. You need to have the right, the right frame of mind. And yep. I do still believe in this team. And that's why I brought the tough love this morning. That's why I did what I did. And I felt, you get the ping in your chest. But I go, yeah, I've had a lot of coffee. I said, it's been an emotional week. I'm having an amazing week. I said, all of these things are leading up to what I'm about to say to you. I said, are you ready to have a hard conversation? And they gave me the permission. They said, yes, let's have a hard conversation. I go, then here's the real deal. Here is what you need to hear right now. You should have heard this out of my mouth 60 days ago, but you didn't. That's on me. Now you're hearing it. Whatever you choose to do next, I will support you. If we continue down this road, we're going to go down a different road. We're going to go a different way. If we, shake hands and part, we're still going to exchange Christmas cards because we've become friends too. So it's like, fine. Either way is totally fine with me. Oh, Brian, great question. Have you passed on a project that was a star in the long run? Oh, I got to think about that. Not to my knowledge. There's some that are out there that are still working, still trudging. I know one went to, I'm not going to say any, one went to 0 that I passed on. I know that. One is probably still struggling at the moment. But no, I don't think I've passed on any superstars. That's a great question though. Yeah, man, it's liberating. And trust me, I know that it's liberating to be able to say no. I don't need every project that comes down the pipeline right now. I can be very picky and choosy, which is great. But yeah, sometimes you have to, like Kenny Rogers says, no one to hold them and no one to fold them.
100%. And I think that's the big part of it too, is that, you don't say no to projects that are going to be losing projects for whatever reason. If it's the idea, if it's the bandwidth, it could be a million things. Yep. But, I know one of the biggest reasons that I say no to stuff like that is because I'm like, you can see, we've been doing this full time for, 6.5, 7 years now. Mm-hmm. And like, we are still very much a for-profit private business. So I'm not usually in the spirit of turning down money unless I really, really have to. But you see situations like that. And like specifically in your case, if somebody brings you a trash idea that either from an execution standpoint or a lot of times a market fit standpoint, if they bring that to you and you take it, and you do your job and you do it at a high level and you do everything, and then it still doesn't work because it was a trash idea that didn't fit the market, whose fault is it there? They're going to blame you and say it's your fault. It's never their idea. Everybody's ideas are fucking brilliant. Yep. So, that's kind of the thing where like just looking at it, like we had a guy stop in the other day with, I don't want to be hurtful, but just not a very good idea. And wanted to like hire us at like half the rate that we normally charge, which like not really, but just kept going and kept emailing me and all this. So like I finally had to have a thing. I'm like, dude, this is what you need for a business to work. You need an idea, you need a value product. Like I'm like, you don't have any of those. I could be wrong. I don't know anything. I'm not business Jesus, but like from my experience, like this is what I think you're missing. Yep. And he's like, no, people need this. And I'm like, okay, great. I hope I'm wrong. I hope I'm making $1 million a month on this, but I don't think you're gonna. And it's just one of those things where like, if I took it, it would have been super high maintenance. for 50 cents on the dollar. It's just, you just learn once in a while.
Yeah.
Not everybody's for you. It's just, I don't know. I feel you 110% on that.
No, I'm going to finish on that. I just think it's, my question was at the top, is anybody listening? And it's kind of like, now that we've been through an election, there's just, I don't think there's any convincing people, I just don't think people are going to think what they want. People are going to execute on what they want. And I don't think you're going to change people's mind. I really, really, and if you are, it's going to be a very small portion of it, and that's why I'm going to be super interested, when I open up my mail, Monday morning at 5:30 in the morning, I'll be super interested to see what that team decides. I'll be very interested to have them either double down or walk away, because I drew the line in the sand and I said, this is very simple. You have two options. And I laid them out very succinctly. And, I'll be interested. I'm not a betting man. But if I were, I'll make a small prediction. I think they're going to come back. I think ultimately, in my heart of hearts, I think they're going to come back because I just simply laid it. I heard this is a group that hears what they want to hear in every other aspect. I'm towing the line that here's what they want to hear in every other aspect of their life. And I called them out. And it's a group that doesn't get called out very often. So I'm going to be super interested to see what the response is.
Likewise.
All right. On that one, let me wrap it up. Fun episode, man. Thanks for letting me blow off some steam. That was the timing of the show this week was ideal. So thank you for that.
Oh, these are always, anytime we can talk about real life things without specifically talking about real life things, those are always my favorite episodes. So my pleasure.
No, it's great. I feel better. I need no more coffee in my life. I need to go for a walk and get some water is what I need to do. So if you are watching on Facebook, or if you did watch on Facebook, Jerry, Lindsay, Stacy, wow, a lot of people were on today. Thank you. I was just so fired up. I didn't even get a chance to look at my phone today. We appreciate you. If you're watching later on YouTube, if you're walking the dogs, if you're on Spotify or iTunes, and that's on me, by the way. SoundCloud is on me. That is on my list for today to get over to our boy. So I will do that. But we don't just joke about it. And I know it's a catchphrase at the end of every episode, but time is the most valuable asset. You can always get more clients. You can always get more customers. You can always go make more money. You can always shovel driveways and do a side hustle. You can go mow more lawns. You can go do everything. You can go flip stuff on eBay. You can go do everything. But that's the one thing you can't buy is time. And it's not cliche because it's the truth. So thank you for watching. And we will, episode 43?
No, I fucked up last week. This one's 42.
Mr. Mo Rivera, 42. We'll take 42.
Greatest closer of all time. I'm not even ashamed to say.
There you go. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend.
See ya.